This is Howard the Humongous. Want to know why? Ask how. Howard the Humongous. Let's look at a few of the weirder things in the news. The news that other people aren't telling you. Right now, there's a major space race going on in the world. You would never know it sitting in the United States. Why? Because America secretly has no way to get its own astronauts into space. It doesn't have a rocket and a capsule that will take people, an American-made rocket and capsule that will take our astronauts to space. We are in a space dive. We pay the Russians $55 million every time we want to buy a ticket on their spacecraft to get our astronauts into space. Meanwhile, who is racing to get into space? Well, the Asians. There is an Asian space race. China has been in the space business for a long time. It sent up its first tachonauts, its first Chinese in space, almost 10 years ago. It sent up some more just recently. It has 2 modules of its own space station, and it's looking forward to having a huge space station when our space station is decommissioned and allowed to do something absolutely criminal. It's an equivalent to the pyramids of its times. It's one of the greatest buildings that humans have ever put up, and it's one of the first buildings humans have ever put up in space, and we're going to decommission it and let it burn up in the atmosphere. Will we do that to the pyramids? Meanwhile, the Chinese are going to have module after module. They've already got their first 2 modules up of their space station, so they can take over the high ground and leave us scurrying around like ants on the low ground. But the Chinese are not alone in Asia. The Japanese have been in space for over 30 years. The Indians have been in space for over 30 years. It's the newcomers who are scary, and the newcomers put their first satellite into orbit just 10 days before I'm talking to you. And that satellite came from a country called North Korea. And on the Tuesday, when their rocket, their 3-stage rocket carrying the satellite was launched, they said that they were developing rockets solely for peaceful purposes. On Thursday, they decided to be a little bit more candid. What did they say? These rockets are intercontinental ballistic missiles, and they are developing nuclear warheads to put on top of those intercontinental ballistic missiles. And who are these intercontinental ballistic missiles aimed at? Only one target, they said. You and me. The United States of America, their sworn enemy. Meanwhile, guess who else got into the space race in the last 2 weeks? The Iranians. 3 days. No, it was probably 6 days. 6 days after the North Koreans launched their satellite, the Iranians put a chimpanzee into space. Why is that significant? Because George Bush, who was wrong about almost everything in the world, including what to have for lunch, got one thing right. There is an axis of evil, and North Korea and Iran are part of it. And North Korea and Iran have been jointly developing rockets and nukes for the last 30 years. Now we know who those rockets and nukes are aimed at, thanks to the North Koreans' candor. So take a look at the world around you. There are many, many strange things going on, and you're not necessarily going to read about them in the news. This is Howard the Humongous, signing off.